The rain had just stopped when Liang Wei stepped out onto the wooden bridge overlooking the Dejia River. The water below shimmered with the faint orange light of a distant lantern shop, its reflection quivering with each gentle ripple. It was the start of Ghost Month, and the streets of Taichung's Beituan district were slowly awakening with the hum of ritual, smoke, chants, and the scent of burning paper offerings. Liang, 12 years old, barefoot, with trousers slightly torn at the knee, leaned over the railing. His eyes were drawn to something strange near the riverbank, a crimson silk ribbon tied to a floating paper lotus. It wasn't unusual to see such offerings during this time of year, but this one seemed to move against the current, as if pulled by something unseen. He glanced around. No one else noticed. Behind him, the voice of his grandmother, Alma, echoed from the alleyway.
Way.
Don't wander. The river spirits are watching tonight. He didn't answer. Something compelled him to watch the lotus. It drifted closer, then stopped. A sudden gust blew across the bridge, carrying with it a whisper. Not a voice. Not quite. More like breath formed into sound. Liang turned his head sharply. No one. He looked back. The lotus was gone. Suddenly he felt cold. Not the kind of cold that comes from wind or rain. It was the cold that seeps under your skin, deep, ancient, and knowing. That night, Alma locked all the windows. She burned incense longer than usual and refused to speak of the river. But Liang couldn't sleep. He kept hearing it, the whisper, over and over. At dawn, he found a mark on his bedroom wall, a circle drawn in ash, with 3 brushstrokes beneath it. He hadn't drawn it. He hadn't told anyone. He didn't know it yet, but that was the first of 10 signs that would appear. Each one marking a step closer to something hidden beneath the surface of his town, something tied to the last lantern that hadn't been lit in over 70 years. And he was the one who would have to find it. She stood at the edge of the temple courtyard, watching the lanterns being hung by the monks. Not a single word passed her lips. Her name, he later learned, was Lin Mei, a new arrival to Beituan, her family renting a narrow shophouse near the old train station. What struck Liang most wasn't her silence. It was her eyes. They were sharp, unwavering, and somehow ancient, as if they'd seen things most people were too afraid to even speak about. He found himself drawn to her. He approached slowly, unsure. You're new here. She nodded. Did you, he hesitated, see anything strange? By the river? At that, her head tilted slightly. Her gaze narrowed. She pointed, without words, to the sleeve of Liang's shirt. It was the same one he'd worn the night he saw the floating lotus. There, near the cuff, was another mark, smaller than the one on his wall. A single, black brushstroke. She traced it with her finger, then reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded page. On it were symbols. Identical ones. 10 in total. Liang froze. Mei raised 2 fingers. 2 marks. 2 of 10. Then she pointed to herself and lifted her sleeve. Her arm bore the 3rd. They followed the trail of symbols. Mei said little, but Liang began to understand her through gestures and expressions. Her silence wasn't from fear, it was choice. The 3rd symbol led them to an abandoned shrine deep in the outskirts of Daking Forest. It hadn't been touched in decades. Weeds choked the stone steps. Moss coated the guardian lions. The wooden beams creaked, as if groaning from the weight of forgotten prayers. Inside, they found a mural, faded and cracked. It showed a boy and girl standing at a river, beneath a glowing lantern that floated in the air like a miniature sun. Below the mural, someone had scrawled a phrase in old Mandarin script. The river remembers what the people forget. As Liang stepped closer, a sudden gust slammed the shrine doors shut behind them. The air thickened. Shadows shifted unnaturally. Then the 4th symbol appeared, this time etched into the altar itself. No chalk. No ink. It was scorched into the wood. Mei's hand trembled, and for the first time, she whispered, "They're waking." There was a bell tower in Beituan few people noticed. It had no bell, or so they thought. At midnight, the children heard it. A single chime.
Low.
Hollow. Distant. Liang and Mei followed the sound up a winding stone path behind the temple. At the top, hidden behind banyan trees, stood the old tower. Cracked, leaning, but intact. Inside, they found the fifth symbol, carved into the ceiling above the empty bell mount. Mei looked up. The bell wasn't missing. It was sealed, wrapped in chains, paper talismans, and blood-colored silk. A monk's robe hung beside it, faded and torn, as if shredded by claws. They didn't touch anything. But as they turned to leave, the bell rang again. This time, right beside their ears. They ran. The path behind them folded in on itself. Steps disappeared. Trees twisted. Shadows gave chase. Only when they reached the edge of the town did the world return to normal. The fifth sign burned into their memory. Literally. That night, Liang woke with a mark on his forearm, glowing faintly in the dark. Lantern Alley was once the heart of the Ghost Festival, lined with shops, red silk banners, and the smell of sweet rice cakes. Now it was mostly forgotten, except for one resident, old Madame Sue. She was over 90, blind in both eyes, and never left her shop. People said she spoke to ghosts. Some said she fed them. When Liang and Mei visited, she was waiting. "You brought 5, she whispered. 5 marks. 5 doors open. 5 guardians stirred. How do you know?" Liang began. She silenced him with a wave. "The 6th will cost you," she said. She reached beneath her table and pulled out an ancient scroll. When Mei unrolled it, the parchment released a scent, something floral, but decayed. The 6th symbol pulsed faintly at the bottom. Madame Sue placed her hand over it. "When the lantern is lit, one's soul must go. It's always been that way." Before they could ask more, she collapsed. Her last words were quiet, but they echoed for days in Liang's ears. "The lantern will choose." The old train tunnel near Xinfu Station had been closed since the earthquake 15 years ago. Cracks ran along the platform. Nature had crept back in. Few dared go near it. But Mei was certain. "The 7th is buried," she said. They entered with flashlights, hearts racing. The silence was thick, interrupted only by dripping water and the echo of distant, untraceable footsteps. Deep inside the tunnel, they found it. A collapsed section had revealed a hidden chamber, carved into the mountain. Its walls were covered in symbols. But only one glowed faintly. The 7th. As Liang touched it, the walls groaned. Dust fell from the ceiling. A sound, like breath drawn sharply through stone, filled the space. Then the chamber trembled. Something massive stirred beneath them. Not a machine. Not a train. Something older. Alive. Awakening. A monk appeared at dawn. He waited outside Liang's home, dressed in gray robes with no emblems, no sandals, and no voice. He handed Liang a single wooden charm, carved with the 8th mark and pointed east. Mei met Liang at the edge of the rice fields just as the sun broke through the haze. Together, they followed the monk, who never spoke, never turned. Hours passed. They arrived at a temple, untouched by time. No one had tended to it, yet it was pristine. Inside, the monk lit a single candle. The flame bent sideways. Not from wind, from something unseen pulling it. A shrine rested at the far end, empty, save for a single phrase etched into the stone. To unseal the 9th, blood must answer blood. The monk placed his palm on the stone. It split open, and the wind screamed. That night, the Dejia River changed direction. Not metaphorically, literally. Its waters began to flow backward, revealing roots, bones, and things best left buried. Crowds gathered. Elders wept. Some left offerings. Others left town. Liang and Mei stood on the bridge, once again. The same one where it began. The 9th symbol glowed beneath their feet, etched into the wood as if it had always been there. Mei turned to him. "We're close." "Too close," he said. Lightning cracked across the sky. From the river, shapes began to rise, not quite human, not quite shadow. They weren't just spirits. They were memories of the first lantern bearers. And they were not at peace. An old man waited in the ruins of the old theater, where the town once celebrated Ghost Festival with music and laughter. Now it stood empty, silent. He was the last lantern keeper. He wore white robes stained with soot and gold embroidery dulled by years. "The 10th is here," he said, "and you must decide who finishes the circle." He opened a chest. Inside, a lantern, blackened but intact. It pulsed faintly with inner light, as if it remembered being alive. "The lantern chooses," he said, "but it also listens." May stepped forward. "I'll carry it," she said, but the lantern flickered. It turned to Liang. It had chosen him. They stood at the river's edge as the full moon rose. The 10th symbol formed in the air, drawn by the lantern's light, burning golden against the night sky. The spirits gathered, silent, waiting. Liang stepped forward. His hands trembled as he held the lantern above the water. It felt heavy, not in weight, but in memory. The wind stilled. Time paused. Then slowly he released it. The lantern floated, then rose. Higher, brighter, and the spirits bowed. The river calmed. The symbols faded. And for the first time in 70 years, the town of Beituan exhaled. Liang turned to May. No words, just understanding. The lantern had chosen. The story was over. But the watchers still watched.